What's up, boys and girls? Prime Rib Friday. If it's not a thing, it should be a thing. So this is what I do for my garlic herb butter crusted prime. Got our little roast. We got some oregano, rosemary, thyme, fresh dill, and a little Italian flat leaf. About 5 cloves of garlic, and of course our prime here. So a little roast to cut off. Just gonna get this trimmed up. I've done these videos a couple of times, so we're gonna, just keep this minimal. Got a stick of salted sweet cream and a stick of unsalted sweet cream, and we're just gonna do this up. Simple S&P underneath all that goodness. No need for anything else. Let that beef do the talking. So let's get this thing prepped up. All right, so we got it all trimmed up. I know some are gonna say about the fat cap. I just don't leave it on. Underneath the fat caps, most of the time, there's tons of silver skin. It's not doing anything. I'd much rather have a little bit of crust, a little bit of flavor, let my seasoning get through. Nothing's gonna penetrate that stuff. There's plenty of intermuscular fat to melt down into that prime rib roast. It's unnecessary, despite what anybody says. In my opinion, it's the way it is, but I prefer it like this. So I usually trim them nice. If I notice that there's no silver skin underneath it, I'll leave a couple striations of it and let that stuff melt in. But with the butter crust that's gonna be on here, it's completely unnecessary. So, and all it does is hinder what gets into the meat. So, and I don't wanna do that. So, this is what we got here now. We are going to give her a quick little dance with some S&P. Again, my Maldon flake. That's what I like to use. This one isn't a really big roast. I just cut a small one off just for dinner tonight. There's only 4 of us, so I'll order the family pizza, you know what I mean? So a little S&P. Make sure it stays honest on there. Try to keep a dry hand, you know what I mean? So I'm not sticking a meat hand in my salt like I just did. But I cleaned it off. I've been doing this for years. Haven't killed anybody yet, so I'm just gonna go by my record. No casualties. We'll be all right. That I'm aware of, or intentional. What's nice about this flake is it just melts so thin, and it just melts and soaks in there. It's so tasty. It's the good stuff, guys. It's the good stuff. And last side here. Man, this is gonna be super tasty. Super tasty. And that's what we got there. So, I'm gonna set this aside here. We got our sweet cream. Now this is really the easy part. Honestly, it's really, it doesn't need to be on video, so I'll probably just put this in fast forward mode. We're just gonna toss everything in there. Again, that's why I won't be using any salt, any pepper, because I have it on the meat for one, and two, the salt will come from the salt content of the one salted sweet cream that's in here, which is a good balance. I found it's plenty. It's not too salty, but it's still, you know, it still has that flavor in there. So we're just gonna toss it all in there, mix it up. Okay, so we got her all mixed up. That's what we got. Let's pack it. So our meat's warm. I like to do, I've done this hundreds of times. I do prime rib a lot. So I've been trying to just, every time I make a couple of changes just to get it to where I like it, just things that I noticed when it comes to the butter crust. I find the butter crust sets better and performs better when the meat is at room temperature. Not to mention the S&P, you know, everything just, it's just more open to what you're doing to it, you know, flavor-wise. So by doing that, I just take it and I always start with a pretty decent chunk, pack it down, and then just kind of spread it. You know, it's not gonna be perfect. It's gonna stick, it's gonna pull. You know, it can be a pain, but this is minimized a lot when the meat is at room temperature. Like when the meat is cold, the butter wants to sit up right away. So it makes it a hell of a time spreading it. And what it'll do is it'll actually chill the butter and it'll crust. So as you're wiping it, it'll pull big blocks of the butter off. So I just find room temperature meat works better when you're doing a butter crust, you know? Now I know some people, I don't know if, you know, this has been done, you know, a lot of people have done this, things like that. But the butter, yes, it melts away, which is another thing that I've noticed temperature-wise. Like typically, I used to always start my roast at 225. Go nice and slow and, you know, all that other good stuff. So, but what I found with the butter crust is 225, it's too low. So when the butter's melting, it's not actually creating the crust because it's too low. I find like 250 is enough where the butter's melting. It's not so hot that it just melts and runs off of the meat because the meat's tightening up. But it's enough to where it soaks in and it starts building that crust. So you have that nice herb crust at the very end of it. So I usually run about 250 until I start seeing that nice crust build up. And then what I do is I usually bump it up and finish it at 275. You know, if it's a bigger chunk of meat, sometimes 300. But this little boy right here, I'm probably only gonna see a max temperature of 275 on it because it doesn't really need more, you know? Also the side that I'm putting down, there's no reason to put the butter crust on it. It'll literally melt so fast and it just drips right down. It doesn't do anything but make more of a mess, honestly. So you're just wasting butter and, you know, there's no reason for it. It doesn't make any difference. Trust me, this is plenty of flavor and plenty of crust. But I do like to make sure I get all my tips, my ends done here. You want to make sure it's a nice layer, so that way as it melts, all them herbs, the butter will almost turn into, it'll almost like form, and it'll just grab all them herbs, and then the herbs will toast up and they take on all that smoke, and it's seriously, it's the way to do a prime rib, in my opinion. Shit is awesome, man. Seriously. And it's one of my favorite dinners. I mean, I try to do this as often as I can get away with without my wife saying, come on, again? Because I can seriously just eat this every night with a salad and some fries and live my best life, you know what I mean? So, that's what we're doing right there, guys. So now, I'm going to put it in the fridge. Like I said, the meat's already at room temperature, so it'll take way long for that meat to actually get so cold you don't want to put it back on the grill. So usually around an hour, hour and a half, it'll actually, the butter will just have a nice crust. It'll be like knocking kind of crust, and that'll just encapsulate the entire piece of meat. But then the meat to still be, you know, I don't know, 55, 60 degrees, something like that, you know, which is plenty to put it on there. You won't have any problems. But the butter is cold enough to where it takes a minute, you know, and it does its job the way it's supposed to. So this guy's going in the fridge, and I'm gonna get out there, get some things situated, prep my sides. We're gonna do some au jus on there as well. I'm not gonna use a drip pan, I never do. So what I do is in a separate pan, I take my trimmings that I just cut off of this, I throw them in a little styrofoam pan with some beef stock, a little thyme, a little pepper, a little salt, a little garlic, some chopped up garlic, and I throw that on there as well and let that smoke and heat up and just kind of do its thing anyway. So it's essentially just like the drippings from the meat. But I've found when I'm using the butter crust, if I'm doing the garlic herb butter crust, it's hard to make au jus out of the drippings because of the butter. There's so much fats and things like that. Now this isn't margarine, so there's no oil. You know, I mean, it is actual butter. It's all I use. Way better for you. Seriously, it is. But I just found that it just adds a taste that I don't like in my au jus. I like a nice beefy au jus. So that's the way I do it. So I'll definitely go through that when we get out there, but let's let this thing rest. All right, guys, let's fire it up. Now, I trust it, I believe in it, but honestly, that is my prime rib machine, man. She doesn't fail me. It makes beautiful prime rib every time. But I'm letting the SmokeFire have a go at it, and I'm confident. So let's see what she can do. All right. Should be good on pellets. Let's fire her up. Oh man, I even left the probe in it last time. That was all hell broke loose the last time I was cooking. Things got crazy. I was actually talking with Steve over at Owl's Nest Barbecue, and I had the prime ribs on here, and they went too long, and I got sidetracked, and needless to say, I ended up eating Taco Bell. So we are going to set this guy at 250, like I said. And I don't ever check anything. As long as it's got pellets, it starts it. That's it. So I'm gonna let that get up to 250. Our prime rib's been in there probably close to about an hour, a little over. And we're gonna let this thing get up, get the prime rib on there, and let it cook. So, all right, I'll be back. All right, boys and girls, we are at temp. Let's put our prime rib on. This is what we got, by the way. There she is. See what I'm saying? Knocky, knocky, knocky. So, all right, let's do this. Give her a little scrub it up. Ooh, like that? It's nice. All right, so here we are. We'll put this guy right here. And I'm gonna come in right back here. Going up too much. There we go. That should be all right. Close enough. Plug it in. All right. So yeah, like I said, the meat's still at 55, but we still had a nice solid crust of the butter. So I'm going to just let that roll. I'm going to take it to around I don't know, around 90, something like that. It's typically right where I start seeing that nice herb crust form, things like that. And then we're gonna bump her up. So I gotta get the au jus on there though. So let me go grab that. All right, so here we got our au jus mixture. We got some of the trimmings in there, a little bit of the meat, a little bit of the nice fat, 2 cloves of chopped garlic, some beef stock, a little bit of fresh thyme, and we're just gonna let that just do its thing. So let it smoke, let them pieces render down in there, let the flavor come together, you know what I mean? Want to set this guy right back here. Ooh, smoky. And let the magic happen. So, all right, we'll be back. All right, guys, so we are at 100 degrees. So for this last 25 or so, we're going to throw a little more heat at it, see what we got going on. Oh, man, see that? Look at that beautiful, all that garlic, all them herbs. Our au jus rendering nicely. See how it's not clear anymore? It's going to be tasty. So we are going to step this up. Instead of my 275 like I had stated, I'm actually going to step it up to 300 because it's getting late and the natives are getting restless. So it shouldn't affect anything. Should just build a nicer crust. So 300, I'm going to pull it around 125 or so. It's not a real big piece of meat, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of residual. I should finish it, you know, it should finish right around the 130 mark. The smaller end, that's the stuff my wife eats. She likes it a little more done than I do. Good vet could bring my meat back to life. So I'll eat the bigger end. So pit privilege, you know. But we're gonna let this go and then we'll pull it off. All right, guys, we are ready. We're gonna shut this guy down. It's currently at 127. This is what we got. Oh man. Come on, look at that. Here, I'll just put you right there while I glove up. A little food porn going on. It's beautiful. I like it. All right. So first off, grab this. Check that out. Man, it smells fantastic. And there's this. Be able to see it better when we get in the light. Let me deglove here real quick. All right, so I'm going to bring that in there, let it rest while I get everything prepped up. Probably let it rest for about 10 minutes, something like that. Should be good. Should give me plenty of time, and then we'll cut into her. Button don't work with my gloves on. All right, let's see what we did. Oh man. Look at that. One more in here without it falling apart. like that. All right, guys, that's all I got.